Hello and welcome everyone to this really special show with an extremely special guest, the President of the World Bank, Dr. Yong Kim, here in India on his first visit to India. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
And we're here at the World Bank where we have a large number of young people in particular who are here waiting to ask you, Dr. Kim, a large number of questions. First of all, it's such a pleasure to have you here. You've spent a couple of days now in India. You went to Uttar Pradesh, you saw the Ganga, you were concerned a bit, I think, about the condition of the Ganga.
You know, it was very significant that on my first trip as World Bank president, I got to go to Uttar Pradesh. You know, I had just been in Brazil the week before, and to be in this state that has a larger population than Brazil was very striking. And I learned two things about the Ganga. One, that it's a sacred place, that this is, for hundreds of millions of people, the river is sacred. But I stood there as I watched the nalas dump raw sewage into the river, and I thought, my goodness, what an enormous issue and problem this is. But I also left there knowing that the expenditures on healthcare and education are not what we would like it to be, but there's so much great stuff happening in Uttar Pradesh. You know, at the World Bank Group, our mission, and we're coalescing around very clear mission. One of them is to end poverty, and the other is to boost what we call shared prosperity, economic growth that includes everyone, especially the poor. And so it struck me that unless we're successful in Uttar Pradesh, we will never be able to meet our goals for the World Bank Group as a whole. So despite the fact that there were that it was bracing. You know, last night I actually dreamed about the Nala putting raw sewage into the river, and it stuck with me because this is my responsibility.
For somebody who's a health professional,
yes.
You've been a health professional, you think of what we are doing to our rivers, you think of the health hazards that come from raw sewage going into the Ganga or the Yamuna. Yeah. Last year we were trying to clean up the Yamuna, and I can't tell you just how filthy it was just behind the Taj.
We can do it. And in meeting with government officials, I've never been more convinced that you have an extremely committed group of leaders who really want to take action on things like cleaning up the Ganga. And I came out of Uttar Pradesh with a sense of the scale and the sense of the problems, but a sense of also tremendous optimism and possibility.
That, in a sense, what you're seeing in Uttar Pradesh is almost the sub-thesis around India itself. Now, here you have a country, 1.3 billion people, tremendous possibilities, and yet a very large number of poor. So a lot needs to be done.
A lot needs to be done. But one of the things I want to say to the young people here today is I was born in 1959 in Seoul, Korea. And Seoul, Korea in 1959 was actually quite a bit poorer than India today, right? And here I am, president of the World Bank. And my very good friend, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, he actually went to school underneath a tree. Korea was so poor when he was a student that he took his lessons underneath a tree. And if it rained, there was no school, right? So I see in India a place of so much larger scale with people who are committed to education, committed to the future. I want to tell all of you that just never doubt the possibilities for all of you and for this country.
Well, you know, you've been talking about the growth rate and the growth possibilities in India. And, you know, for the last 15, 20 years, there's been growth. For the last 5 years, there was talk of, well, you know, it's around the corner, India will be an economic superpower. Now, some skepticism has come back and growth has slowed. When you look at India from the World Bank's point of view, are you convinced that growth will return? India will be one of the fastest growing countries, taking people out of poverty with it?
We're extremely hopeful. Let me put it very starkly. So there are some 1.2 billion people living in absolute poverty in the world, and 350 to 400 million are right here in India. So the only hope we have of ending poverty, and we're talking about ending poverty in this generation, in 10, 15, 20 years, we're trying to figure out exactly the time scale. We want to end poverty in the world. We can't do it without India, so India simply has to grow. India has to make the kind of progress. Here's what I see that's important. In my meetings with the Prime Minister Singh and Finance Minister Chidambara, they understand exactly what it takes. You need to invest, first of all, in infrastructure. And there's something like a $1 trillion infrastructure deficit over the next 5 years. And what Minister Chidambaram told me was that About half of it's going to come from the public sector, and about half of it's got to come from the private sector. So we need massive investment, but it has to be public and private. The other thing that was very impressive to me is that he said, and at the same time, we've got to invest in health, education, social protection. These are not handout programs. These are investments in human capital, the other critical part of ensuring the foundations of economic growth. I saw commitment to both of those in the government, and those are the keys to setting the foundation for economic growth in the future. We're very optimistic.